All right, let's look at wide receiver team targets, right? We're going to throw the tight ends and running backs out of the equation. Who just going to add up the targets for the wide receivers? Jacksonville's number one here, right? Mixing it around too. You can see how many different people have touched the ball here. Fit for Jacksonville, 53, 46. Of course, Brian Thomas Jr. has been hurt, and they brought in Jacoby Myers. Last week's touch has been Jacoby Myers. He's been filling in pretty good here. Last week was a good week for him, and Parker Washington's been filling in really good, right? Especially for you guys in PPR, all right? So, hey, fantasy scoring, would you believe Parker Washington leads them he's the 29th in scoring at wide receiver this year on 45 amount of touches. So you can see he's flying up there. And for this next week, Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington, they got ranked pretty high. Brian Thomas Jr., he is, says injured, questionable for this week. So we'll see if he makes it back, right? Bring on the next team. Seattle's number 2 here. Well, JSN here. It's not hard to believe they got 206 on the year. Hey, look at that. Yeah, first in scoring, first in targets. Looks like he's got, with the rushes added in, 92, right, for himself here. Well, we can see it right there. Hey, here's for the touches for the season for all of them. He brought some of those over too, and last week's touches was all JSN again, right, for one of the top ones, and he's ranked number 1 this week for the next team for coming up. All right, how about Kansas, or how about Dallas, number 3 here with 189? Well, this is expected. The first two were, hey, you didn't know. So how about touches on the season? George Pickens, 72. Right, he's number 2 in scoring, 7 in those touches. Right, and of course CeeDee Lamb with those injuries off and on. He is 35th in scoring, 23rd in touches. Underwater there as far as that, and Turpin and them follow up. So, but for the next week, you could see that last week he had 11 targets for CD and 9 for Pickens here, and of course for the year you got 2 for this. This is scoring for the year. Well, 2 and 35, like we said, and 6 and 7 here for the weekly ranking for this next week. Even though they got a tough matchup here, they've got Kansas City. You can see that's one of the toughest matchups here with the number 2, and they still got them ranked 6th and 7th. Good luck. How about that? How about the Chargers up next on the wide receivers, right? We have Keenan Allen there, right? They have 185 for the year. We'll see that Keenan Allen leads them. Ladd McConkey's been catching up here lately. Got off to a slow start, but he's been coming on. He is the 21st in scoring now, and the 19th amount of touches. All right. So, hey, in last week's touches, they were on a bye, I guess. So, hey, how about here's the fantasy scoring for the year. You've got 3 in the top 30, but nobody near the top 10. And here's their wide receiver ranks. They got Ladd McConkey. He's been coming on. They got him ranked the highest for the next week. But you still got these 2 coming on there. Hey, Trey Harris popped in there and got something last week. I saw him in there. He's been trying to come on. All right. So, how about the Rams? Yeah, they've been powerhouse here. They're up next. You can see 88 for Puka, 59 for Davante Adams. But Davante Adams is like I called it. I don't know. I hope you guys watched me in the preseason. He's number 4 in scoring. I said he'd have a better year than Puka. Everybody thought I was crazy. But all those touchdowns, right? 12 receiving touchdowns, right? He leads since 2020, he leads the NFL in touches, so that's what we figured. So touches, even though he has many touches, he gets the touchdowns, and that's what I was counting on. How about last week's touches? 11-8, right? Here it is, number 5 in scoring's Puka. So you got 2 of the top wide receivers there, all right? And there's the fantasy scoring, 4 and 5 for these 2. I don't know. Hold on, Davante. I called it. You'd be ahead of Puka. Right? So, and matter of fact, I was factoring in that Puka might miss a few games as hard as he plays. Right? How about where they're ranked for next week? 3 and 8. So they're your top ones ranked for next week too. How about Kansas City? Patrick Mahomes been throwing that ball, right? How about Brown, some of the leaders here on their team. Of course, it's a mix. Look at that. All those getting touches on the season. And last week, though, Rashid Rice is back, right? He's been back, so you can see he's been scoring pretty good since coming back. He was 12 touches, 8 for Worthy. Now, Hollywood's been falling down, of course, since Rice has come back. And some of these others, Thornton's non existence anymore. So, kind of, here's their fantasy scoring on the year. And this wide receiver rank, they got Rice ranked pretty high for this week. Nobody else is really even hitting the target anymore here. How about the Bengals? They're next on the list, even without Burrow. Flacco trying to keep them afloat there. Jamar Chase, he's 86 on the season. That ranks him third in touches, number 7 in scoring. All right, so he's trying to get off the snide there and get him going. He's here. T. Higgins with 46, Andre Osifos. But last week, he had T. Higgins, all right, 12, or he didn't do very good. And Andre also. Jamar Chase, though, no injuries for this next week. We'll see how he does. And so for this fantasy scoring, he's 7th and 12th. And this next week's rank, they got him ranked number 1. All right. Easy matchup against Baltimore here. So, hey, they're going to rank him number 1 for next week. How about touches on the season? We got that. So let's move on to the Bears. The Bears here. Hey, they're one of the top passing to their wide receiver. DJ Moore leads the team over Rome Odunze there with targets. All right. You see that not very much, but they passed all 4 of them. All right. It's hard to get one of them to break out. Last week touches. Rome Odunze did get 2 more than DJ Moore. Of course, DJ Moore got those touchdowns, scored pretty good. So, fantasy scoring, Rome Odunze's 13th on the year with 34th amount of touches. He's, wow. They get, look out for him next year when they get that all in order there. And for the rank for this next week, they're pretty good. But there's the Bears popping in there. Luther Burton, he's trying to come on here more lately with the OZ kind of fading a little bit here. But you can see last week he got 6 touches for Burton. And Bears there. How about Houston? We got Nico Collins. They're one of the top 10 teams in targeting the wide receivers. Of course they are. The running game hadn't been working out too much for him. 61 for Nico. All right, 61 targets on the year. He's the 16th on the 15th amount of targets. That's right on schedule. He missed those games. He missed a couple games there with the injury. Been kind of injured. Jaden Higgins. He's the 55th in scoring. Hadn't been doing much. You can see some of the last weeks, though, Jaden Higgins had 9 targets. Look at that last few couple weeks here. He's been coming on, so you need to watch out for him. All right. And last up, fantasy scoring here is that. So, all right. What about the New England follows the final on the list here? We've got, mention that New England team passing the ball without Tom Brady. There. How about 63 for Diggs? Mac Hollins, 35. You got some, and last week's touches, of course, Mac Hollins been coming on here lately, right? He's 55th and 54th, but hey, he's been getting the target last week, 6 targets. Stephon Diggs, he does that disappearing act every so often. Look at those weeks before. And Boutte came back. He got 2 targets last week. He's been out with injury, so kind of putting that all in the mix. How much we're going to get? He only got 2 targets last week. Pop Douglas is popping on there all the time, too. So, anyway, the fantasy scoring on the year, Diggs is 28th. 13th amount of touches, so that's not very efficient. So, hey, maybe pass. Why? Maybe Hollins and them are coming along. All right, let's switch it around like some of the worst teams. All right, let's switch this around and look at the other teams that aren't been doing so good at passing. How about Vegas here? 75 wide receiver targets. Now, of course, Jacoby Myers took his 20 that he had when he had here, and he moved him on down. Trey Tucker's 26th in scoring and 25th in targets. So he's been the only life here on Vegas. 53 touches or targets on the season here for him. How about, let's bring up Cleveland. You're wondering where Jerry Jeudy went. Well, he has the 47th amount of targets, and 64th in scoring. So, hey, but they just have their second last team in targeting the wide receiver. So that's why they're not scoring. Cedric Tillman, 25. Look at that. Last week, you got 3 targets. These are targets. How are you going to survive a wide receiver getting 3 targets? Just not. They need a Shedeur Sanders. Maybe he can switch him around there a little bit, right? He's in the game. Hey, hasn't passed a whole bunch yet, but hey, we'll see if they'll get some. Maybe they'll focus on passing a little bit. How about the Jets? All right, you wonder where they're 95. They have targets the wide receivers on the year, and Garrett Wilson. Hey, he's good. He's got 42 here, but hey, of course he's been injured. Right, he leads them. He's on IR to week 15, so just not a lot of targets going around there last week. Whew. Fantasy scoring 43rd. He's hanging on. How about Pittsburgh? Aaron Rodgers brought in to be their quarterback. Ooh, one of the worst targeting the wide receivers. Only one getting any action is DK Metcalf. He's got 50 on the year and had 10 last week. 10 targets. So you get a lot last week. Some down weeks here in the last, but hey, you know, those 5 touchdowns, 1 rushing helps buoy him to the 17th scoring. But 31st in touches, you can see there, he's not getting to touch the ball a lot, or targets anyway. They got him ranked 17th in scoring, he is, and he's 30th ranked for this next week. So, hey, he's got a tough matchup against Buffalo. Actually, it's a pretty good one. He hasn't been scoring, right? So, how about Atlanta? Well, maybe with Kirk Cousins coming in, they'll start targeting these wide receivers a little bit. We could see that Drake London here, 68. Mooney, where you been? Well, hey, Kirk Cousins lit you up last week, but other than that, he's 77th in scoring. You can see just hardly no touches for the wide receiver. Drake London, hey, he's number 6 on the 9th amount of touches. He's doing pretty good, but it's been all Drake London, right? And he's last week, you know, he's been, of course, injured here till week 13, questionable. So Mooney got his 3 targets. Other than that, just nothing going on here. And a scoring. So, hey, about next week's ranking, they've got Mooney. They're not trusting Drake London's going to come back 37th for Kirk Cousins there, I guess. All right, moving on. How about Baltimore? How's Zay Flowers going to do any scoring? He's 27th. He's got the 6th amount of touches, though. So, if he's got the 6th amount of touches, they ain't throwing to anyone else here, right? 72 for him on the season. Rashard Bateman, hey, you know, he scored good last year. Where's he at this year? Well, the problem here is Lamar Jackson doesn't have 41 passing touchdowns like he did last year. Everybody, the ball boy got one. All right, so, hey, you know, not enough to go around this year. Zay Flowers getting all the action, but 27th in scoring. Whew. Baltimore not been doing very good there. How about the Saints? Saints come, hey, well, now, hey, they're low because they were one of the most targeted. Look at this, number 5 in targets, Chris Olave. Right, he's 15th in scoring. Hey, we finally got some scoring going here. He's been leading in touches every week. He's leading the touches. And, of course, they traded away one of the wide receivers, and he's not going to be on the list. Here. So how about Cooks for 20? They just got nobody. Last week, who are they targeting? Touches on the season. Well, yeah, Chris Olave. Last week, Vele came on with 7 touches. So keep an eye out for Vele. You got to start getting him. They traded for him. Why not use him? That's probably why they got rid of Shaheed. All right, up next, we've got San Francisco. San Francisco, they're one of the passing teams. No, they're on the bottom here of teams that haven't been passing their wide receiver. Of course, been a lot of injuries there, but Jennings here, 39th. He's their lead guy there with 45 targets on the season. Bourne flashed there for a little bit in between. Of course, last week's touches, Jennings and Piershall's back. He got some targets last week. Maybe he can help come on for them. Hodges been filling in down here, right? So, all right, and how about Philadelphia, right? Not only is A.J. Brown not getting the target, he's second on the team. Devontae Smith here, he's got 57 to 49 there. Now, Devontae Smith is the 18th in scoring on the 20th amount of touches. See A.J. Brown, 32nd on the 33rd amount of targets for the year. All right, and some of these other fill-ins, Mechie, hey, just nice to see he's popping up there. Last week it was 11 to 10, and Mechie got his 7 last week there. Been popping in here the last couple of weeks. I think Jahanni Dotson's back. I don't know. All right, so fantasy scoring 18th and 32, of course, and the rank for this next week. They got both of these ranked high. The Philadelphia receivers, of course, got Chicago, one of the easiest schedules for these guys. Get them in there. All right. So, and Minnesota. Well, that J.J. McCarthy's bringing Justin Jefferson down. 11th amount of touches, 19th in scoring. Woo! What happened to Justin Jefferson? Well, bad quarterback play. All right, should have kept Sam Darnold, looks like. So they're one of the worst teams here, too. You can see Jefferson's getting his targets on the year. Addison, of course, slow start, but because he has suspended those 3 games. Naylor's getting 25 on the season. And last week, it was all Jefferson. All right, a few little ahead. And last on the list here is Arizona. They're getting a few more with Michael Wilson here. All right, he's been coming on here these last few weeks. Of course, Marvin Harrison Jr., you can see here, 38. So 51 for Michael Wilson, 38 for, he's still 33rd in scoring, Michael Wilson. Hey, he just hadn't been coming on lately with these targets, so he hadn't been, and Dortch here coming on a little bit too. But that's some of the teams that haven't been passing. They're worst passing teams. Let's take a look at this.